Hello, those of you that are interested in lickety log splitters, or just stumbled on this video by accident. Finally getting around to doing something that I've been wanting to do for quite some time, and now that I'm retired, thought I'd give a little video presentation of my lickety log splitter collection. Obviously, those two over there to the left are the ones that do the work, and this one is more or less retired. Talk about some of the differences here. The one on the far side is an MK528, and this is an MK348. That one I use the most, and if you saw my previous videos, I had a broken spring inside of the auto shift mechanism. Replace that. It does continue to have air in the system somewhere. I'm used to it. It really doesn't bother me. If somebody, this MK348 works a little smoother. The air in the system, it's not that bad, and it does cause the ram to jump when it jumps from the high speed into the low speed. But I'm used to it, and as you can see in the background, it doesn't hinder me from splitting, but that's the one I use the most. That was the first one I owned. Got that from my brother-in-law in 2002 because the one that I can verify the age was this one. It's an EK, I think it's an EK308. It's a single speed. When I was 14 years old, my father said one summer day or fall day, "Come on, we're going to go buy a log splitter." So we drove to, I think it was State College, Pennsylvania. Might not have been. I'm not sure where we went. At 14 years old, I'm looking out the window daydreaming. I didn't pay attention. What I can recall is that he was looking at a smaller model, and it had smaller wheels on it, the kind you just for moving around on your own property. When he got there, he was talked into buying this bigger model, and it had wheels on it that you could tow behind your vehicle, highway rated. So naturally he upgraded to that, and it was $900 in 1971. So if you equate that to today, that's like $5,700. So a large sum of money back then, and $5,700 for a splitter like that today, that's about right. That's my favorite one. The single speed it's simple, it's durable, it's worked for many, many years, and first couple years that we had it, there was a firewood business that my brothers, I had a small part of it. We maybe split 25 or 30 cords a year, plus the 10 cords or so that my father burned in the house. So that remained like that for maybe 6 or 7 years or so. I kind of got into the firewood business a little heavier and used it in my house and my father's house, and to sell wood. I probably sold, I think one year was up to 53 or 54 cords of wood. So that lasted for a number of years until I acquired that 528 from my brother-in-law in 2002. My father continued to sell a little bit of firewood just by the stick, as people would stop in, get a little for campfire wood, things like that. But I got the 528 2002 from my brother-in-law. He knew I was looking for a lickety log splitter, and he was in the business of buying, selling lawn equipment, things like that. He called me and told me he had it. Him and a neighbor messed around with it a little while, and he wasn't really interested in it, and I bought it for 75 bucks. In 2013, I kept looking for another one because I knew parts were not available, and I found this one about a 2-hour drive. The owner had said that the engine was run without oil, and it had sit outside. It was kind of looks like it does now. I did paint the fenders, but I did get the engine running. Somebody converted it to some kind of electronic ignition on the K161, and I took it back to the points condenser, got it running. It smoked pretty bad and had a bad knock in it, and so I took that engine off. But I was more or less interested. An engine you can get, that they're pretty popular. At that time, I bought a brand new Kohler K161 off eBay. Came in a crate. It was olive drab, and the sticker says for replacement or export only. But had the right shaft size, the right shaft length. It was a direct bolt-on, and everything came with that engine down to the spark plug. The only thing I needed was a gas tank. The air filter, the air cleaner assembly, everything was there. So in a matter of a half hour, I had it on and hooked up and had another splitter. One thing I'd like to touch on, you can see the fenders on this one compared to the one over there, the 528. The difference. The few people that I've seen on the YouTube that talk about these splitters, seems like everybody thinks they have a 1959. I'm not going to dispute that, but the man got a patent on the Clayton Brunkner patent, the Lickity log splitter in 1959. And that one over there says patent applied for, and it was pioneered and manufactured by the the Waco Aircraft Company. Got a little ahead of myself. This one, the wedge is a little taller. Basically everything else is the same. You do have the raising and lowering of the axle to drop the I-beam on the ground, but the fenders are different. And this one says manufactured by Piqua, from Piqua, Ohio. So I do know that this one is newer than that one, because if you read the biography of Mr. Brunkner, Waco was, I believe, was his company maybe with a partner, but and I think it got taken over by, or he sold to Piqua. So that only makes sense. That's older than this one. 1959. I have my doubts, but I don't want to upset anybody. Like I said, this one, 1971. I can verify the year. That box is on the splitter. That's when I restored this, obviously. My father passed away in 2016, and in 2017 I retired. And one of my first projects was to take this completely apart. Everything was down to bare metal and was prime painted pretty close to the original colors. The stickers my son was able to get from me for Christmas one year. They don't have the fine print that says Piqua Engineering, but that is the exact Lickity log splitter logo. Their stickers, I think they really set it off in my own opinion, but everything was down to bare metal. The rims, put new tires on it. This box is something that my father made years ago to protect it from the elements, because it did spend its time outside. It wasn't put in a garage. It was parked by a wood pile its entire life. So he made that box to protect the engine from the elements. And when I fixed up the splitter, you had to fix up the box. Like I said, single speed. Another one of the differences, these two have a spin-on cartridge filter. This one has a strainer. And it is on the suction side, which all your experts are going to tell you that's not a good idea. Don't do that. Well, that's the way it was designed, and the past, well, let's see, I redid it in 2017, so for 46 years, that's the way it worked. It's original pump. K161 is original. It was professionally rebuilt in the 80s, bored 10 thousandths over. When I redid it, It did need a new head. My father had cross-threaded the spark plug hole. I had a helicoil in it, which worked fine, but while I was redoing it, I bought a new head. Freshened up the rings with a new set of 10,000ths over. Honed the cylinder a little bit. It was in good shape, so I didn't mess with that. Replaced the exhaust valve, reground the valves, reset them to proper clearance, and it runs like the day it was new. Very good machine. None like it today. Getting back to the 2-speeds, we'll throw a log on the, I've been splitting here, we'll throw a log on this 2-speed. That one I said there's air in the system and might not be, I mean, I'm used to it, but this one, when it shifts, is not as radical as that other one, as that 528. This one I don't use very much. This is like a backup machine. I drag it out once in a while to run it. I do use ethanol-free gas in all my equipment. A little more expensive, but you'll save yourself a lot of trouble in the long run. So let me get a big enough log where we can make this thing shift, and I'll go over that quick. Before I get started here, I'll talk briefly about this auto shifter again. I do have a gauge here, and it's a cheap gauge. You probably should have a liquid filled. I don't believe it works correctly. If you have a problem, if you go through the test in the book and you're not getting your 1,700 pounds, first thing I would check would be a gauge. I had this one here initially, but I don't think it works anymore. But that's where your gauge would go. Maybe I'll replace it, maybe not. That's not on my priority list. Some of the tubing was bagged up and not in very good shape. I replaced it all. This tubing tees into your sensing line. And that sensing line ties in back here to the main output of your pump. So it tees to the gauge and tees out here to your flow control valve. I talked about that before, which when it builds up enough resistance, runs your piston out. You will trip into the high pressure mode, slow speed, and when that'll push that valve out, that shuttle valve, and instead of oil being blocked and only going into your low pressure mode, now oil can flow into both chambers, the large section in the back plus the small. I talked about that before. Another unique feature of Lickity log splitters, I'm getting a little long here, but I'm going to cover everything. Originally, you had this linkage, and there's a cable attached down here that runs around in a sheath and is connected to the linkage for your control valve. When you pull it forward, this spring is relaxed and allows your governor, you have a rod going up to your governor arm, this is the original way it was done, and that will advance to your full throttle. I'll show that real quick after it's running, and when the ram makes a full stroke and trips to come back, your engine goes back to idle. So let's start her up here and we'll get going. Okay, keep going. Got about a 13-inch carry or so. It should make it shift. There we go. Control handle forward. There you have it. Perfect. That was the main thing I wanted to show you. Let's see. I think that's about it for today. I hate to go over 10 minutes, but I had a lot to cover here. That just shows your auto shift mechanism and how it saves you time. One other thing on these, might as well talk about it. When when I redid this, I was able to get a factory sticker for the air cleaner online somewhere. And if you, before you ruin your foil type stickers on your engine, there's a place that you can buy the original information, also your serial number. So that's just a nice little extra that cleans it up nice. See that cable there? That runs around and comes back underneath, and that's the mechanism there that controls your throttle. So when you move the handle forward, pulls that cable, which relaxes this little spring here, pulls out your governor arm, gives you full throttle. And when the ram hits its full stroke, or you can stop it anywhere in between, goes back to idle. Little fuel saving feature that you don't see today. If you don't have a Kohler on your Lickity, it's probably been replaced. My opinion, but take it for what it's worth. Anyway, beautiful day here today in northeastern Pennsylvania. Thanks for watching. Comment if you want. Be safe.